Yeah. Okay. You see that? Rabbi Shimon in your Gemara it's Chav Zayin, in our Gemara it's Chav Hey. Okay. Now Rabbi Shimon said that all that the svichim of cabbage are also because they're not similar to any other svichim which grow in the fields. So the Gemara asks the question: that is a motivation to say that they are prohibited. What does that mean? Who cares? So what if they're different? So Rav Chaim Baruch of Shem Rabbi Yossi, Rav Chaim Baruch of Shem Rabbi Yossi said they should darken legali most because they grow in bulbs, like onions, right? Cabbage, grows in layers, I guess is the proper term for it, right? So, they should darken legali most because it grows in layers. You are certain that makes it also. So what? Who cares? Or Rav Yitzchak said, most vegetables you can tell from which year it is, because each year grows fresh. But these cabbage or cress type things, they grow each year a different layer. They don't grow fresh; they grow a different layer each year. So therefore, here, we're afraid that if you let him, Rabbi Shimon says, I can't allow svichim of cabbage because I'm afraid that a guy is going to play tricks. And he's going to say, well, this is cabbage of the 6th year, whereas it's cabbage of the 7th year. This is cabbage of the 8th year, whereas it's still cabbage of the 7th year. We won't be able to prove him wrong because it grows in layers. We don't know from which, we can't, it's not like tree rings. You can't guess based on the size of the layers when it started growing, so therefore you have to ask for svichim of this type. Okay? Tanya, we learned. Loof is a type of vegetable that grows in 3-year cycles. So you're not required to uproot the loof which grows during Shemitah. You leave it in the ground throughout Shemitah. If it grows in Shemitah, Motzai Shevi'is muter. And Motzai Shevi'is, you're still allowed to use it again because the assumption is there's no svichim. Well, I shouldn't say you can. The assumption is the prohibition of svichim doesn't apply to this. Why is the prohibition of svichim not apply to this? Because svichim applies to stuff which you're afraid this guy is going to plant during Shemitah. Therefore, we say, even if it grew wild, you're not allowed to use it. But here, since these are 3-year cycles, it's unlikely the person's actually going to take the time to plant them during Shemitah. So therefore, if you have this wild loof, it's permitted. Okay? Just so you have to wait till after Shevi'is is over. You do not have to, you don't have to uproot artichokes during Shemitah. You can let them grow throughout Shemitah and use them Motzai Shevi'is. What should you do with the artichokes? During Shemitah, what you can do is you can beat down the leaves, which somehow cause it to grow better. And if it grows, Motzai Shevi'is muter, or whatever is there, Motzai Shevi'is, after Shevi'is is over, is considered to be permissible. When you break off leaves, which are during Shemitah, so you're ruining those leaves, and those leaves are really animal fodder. And animal fodder, it's also to cause a loss to during Shemitah. It says, no. The truth is, when you beat them off, they were still animal fodder. The animals could have come eating them. The animals don't come and eat them, it's not your problem. So therefore, by beating them off during Shemitah, you're not depriving the animals of them. Other rabbi, let the animals come right now and feast on them. All you're doing is making sure that the leaves which impede its growth fall off and that new leaves will take their place. Okay? Now all this is Rabbi Shimon, who only answers certain types of svichim and permits other kinds of svichim. However, the Chachamim say All svichim are also know with any growth which grows wild during Shemitah is forbidden, lest the person comes to plant them. So Rishima Echai, I guess you don't have that. Do you have the next? What? Do you have Kol Svichim Asurim? Okay, fine. Rishim Ba'echai, who was matter certain kinds of Svichim, Haba of Shemitah was passing to once on a Shemitah. He saw somebody collecting Svichim, that which was growing wild during Shemitah. Amar Leis, so he said, V'leis also, isn't this prohibited? How can you do this? V'leis lav Svichim and aren't they Svichim, and they're prohibited to collect during Shemitah. Amar Leis, so the guy who was collecting them said, V'lo atu matir, and hey, Rav Shimon, you yourself permit Svichim. So how can we nishtar chanik? What are you bothering me for? Now I'm doing that which you permit. Amar Leis, Rav Shimon said, Vein chaver chalukin alai. Don't my friends argue with me in this matter. In other words, the other chazal argue with me. Therefore, and the psak therefore goes against me because I'm just an individual. But you have broken the barrier set up by chazal. Kari Elaine, he said concerning this individual who operates getter, he who breaks barriers, he will be smitten by a snake, and needless to say, the chayin have a slay. That's what happened. He got smitten by a snake and he dropped dead. Again, because the third Shirvachai only asks a certain type of svichim, certain types of wild growth during Shemitah, Rabbanan asks for all of them uniformly regardless. Okay? Yeah. Right, this morning, I have again tomorrow morning. Also goes in trouble. We're not finished with him yet. Shimei Echai, Rabbi Elazar break. Shimei Echai and Rabbi Elazar's son. Abdun Tzmir ben Marta, we know that they hid in a cave, Tlasas Rinshni, 13 years. Vava Ochlin, and they would eat Charuvin the Gardona, dried carobs. Achel Gufan Chalud, until their bodies became rusty. They became, out of shape. The soft Tlasas Rinshni, after 13 years, Omar, Rabbi Shimon Chai said, should I not go out and see what voices I hear in the world? So he went out and sat on the opening to the cave. He saw a certain bird hunter, spreading his nets. He heard a baskol to Amra which said, Dimus, freedom, Ishtazavis. And the bird remained free, was saved literally. When a baskol, a voice which said that he will be speared. Spikula means speared or caught. Then the bird would fall into a trap. So Shimei Chai made an interesting kavachomer. He said, if a bird is not caught, literally means destroyed, unless Kosh Baruch Hu consents. Kosh Kem Barnosha is certainly true about human beings. So therefore, I should not be so fearful. Nafke, let it go out. Kadchama the Shadchad Milay. Once he saw that the matter had died down, the matter for which he went to the cave in the first place, Amai said, Nechus, let us go down, I and my son Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon. Let's go take a bath in those baths, the therapeutic baths in Tiberias. Amar. As they were taking the baths, they felt, as Rabbi Shimon Chai felt, a sense of gratitude to the city of Tveria. Amar said, we have to make a takana, like our forefathers did, whenever they were satisfied with the city. The Chsiv says, when Yaakov Avinu came before Shechem, before the whole episode occurred with Dinah, it says he made encampment outside the city, and we learn from about the Ketzur to understand this. So you osim at least in the Mochrim Bezol, they made discount butcher stores. Jews were making deli meat in the old days, corned beef pastrami. So Yaakov Avinu comes to Shechem, he sets up, Yaakov Jacob's Deli. there in order for the people of Shechem to have in order to do that favor, to reciprocate for the favor of his being able to live there. What? I mean, no, that was later on. That was later on. Okay. Amalei Bray. So Sarah Shimon said, Kol Adota, you're right. Kol Adota Avoso, all this favor, Abdos Lo and Tveria is done for us. Lace on him at the Medakan, you're saying we're not going to purify it. In other words, it's Tveria, there are whole shilas about where they were kvarim. Especially because who's buried in Tveria? That's true, but who else? That's true, but who else? Some ones. The 24,000 students of Rabbi Akiva. Yeah. That's where they died. Yeah. So he was Yerushalmi Shevi'is himself was a student. In any event, so he said, let's go be Matar and find where the Kvaros were. Amar, so he said, Nivkei Tveria. He said, yeah, let's purify Tveria. V'avanusif turmusin would take lupin beans, umikatzates, he would cut it. Excuse me. Umikalik, he would toss them. V'kol hein dava miso, any place where there was a dead body in the ground, have a tight v'soik leileo. The dead body would come up. In other words, the bean would go down and the body would come up, right? There was some law of magic, whatever, magic divination. So he was seen, the Rishon Chai was seen by a certain Kuti. Omar was said, Leisano Azil, should I not go mafle and make a mockery by of those old Jewish men? Nosav Chadmis, he took a certain corpse, Vazil V'admer, and he went and hid it, Hain, in a place that they already purified. Asked the guy, he said, didn't you already purify that location? Amalei said, Hain, yes, I did. Amalei said, Esau, come, Vano mafik lach, mintamon, I'll get you dead body out of there. Amalei, so I'm not sure you have these lines. The Amalei, so Shimon said, good, take me, Chamilin, show me. So when they got the location, Shimon saw with Ruach HaKodesh, with his Das Torah, Shunos no Sham, that he himself, the Kutia, put the corpse there. V'amar, and he said, Rabbi Shimon Chai, I decree that the one on top go down, meaning the Kuti should drop dead and down under, and that the dead body should rise and come up. Have a slate, and that's what occurred. Okay? Have a other Kumi Magdala de Tzavaya. But as he was leaving Tveria, Shimon Chai passed through Magdala de Tzavaya. Shamakai the Sabra, and he heard the voice of a certain Sofer who sat with him on the court in Tveria, when she decided to undergo this procedure. Amri said, Bar Yochai Medachi Tveria. It's true, Bar Yochai was Medachi Tveria. However, Amrun, they say the Ashkechun Chad Katil, that they found one dead body in the vicinity. Amar Lei, Rabbi Shimon Chai said, Yavor light, may this come upon me. Imlo Shamati Shetzveria Asiyatar. It's a lotion of an oath. He says that I only did this because I heard that Tveria would eventually become Torah. Be that as it may, I feel okay, even if that's so. Imanu Yisa Kshetara. You, the Sofer, were with us at part of the court which agreed to be Matar Tveria. Therefore, for you to come and then afterwards renege on the deal, you are breaking through the barriers directed by Chachamim. Alecha Ne'amar, concerning you it says, somebody who breaks the fence, he's bitten by a snake. Immediately the sofer became a heap of bones. Okay? I guess they rebury them in certain locations. Yeah, still is. Sure. They say that 24,000 bodies are buried between the kever of the Rambam and the kever of Meir Balanes. I don't mean to say anything. Go ahead. Try me anyway. Yeah. Only that location. Because it's known that there were 24,000 dead people there. They weren't buried there.
750,000 to 1 million people died.
They weren't buried there. They're buried out of space, one on top of the other. Look, I don't know, but I'm telling you that there is an issue nowadays in Tveria. There are areas where people don't come. Okay, what can I tell you? I don't make up the rules. Well, it may seem that way. No, you certainly do. Show to be. Do you guys have your maps? Sugar looking. Excuse me, Gimel or Dalit? Dalit. The three lands which pertain to Biur: Yehuda, Ever, Yarden, and Golil. Yehuda, Ever, Yarden, and Golil. Now, an interesting thing what you see on this map is that between Yehuda and Golil there was a no man's land called the area of the Samaritans. That's why we have Masechah Gittin that it was dangerous to travel between Yehuda and Golil. Okay? Now, so you have Yehuda, Ever, Yarden, and Golil. Each one of these areas is further subdivided into 3 different zones, or 3 different regions. Okay, is that clear? Each one of those 3 subdivided regions has a different time for biur. We look at each one separately when determining whether the crops in that area are still available for the animals in the field or not. Okay, so far so good? Okay, so says the Mishnah, Shalosh haratzos l'biur, the 3 lands in terms of biur. Yehuda, Ever, Yarden, and Golil. The Shalosh haratzos l'cholachas, which are in turn divided into 3 regions each. Golil Elyon, the Golil is divided into the Upper Galilee, the Golil Tachton, Lower Galilee, Vahemek, and the valley. Mikfar Chanani l'malon. Now, how do we know which is which? From Kfar Chanania and northwards. Kol Shein Megala Sheikhim, where the sycamore trees do not grow. That's Golil Elyon, that's the Upper Galilee. Mikfar Chanania l'mata, from Kfar Chanania and further down. Kol Shein Megala Sheikhim, any place which does grow sycamores. Golil Tachto is considered to be the Lower Galilee. Utchum Tveria, in the zone area Tveria, we have a 3rd region called Ha'emek, the valley. In Yehuda we have 3 regions: Ha'ar, the mountains; Ha'shvela, the depressions; Ha'emek, and the valleys. Shvelas Lot, the depression of Lod, Kishvelas Adorim is like depression on the south. For Harshalah, the mountains in this region, Karamelech, are like Haramelech. Beis Charon Arayam, from Beis Charon till the sea, that's Medina Achas, that's a nation unto itself, that's a land unto itself, that is the land which is represented by the area within the, where the Aleph is. Right, where the Aleph is. Okay? So, now let's go to the Gemara now. Tanya. To your animal and to the beast which is in your land, etc. As long as there's enough stuff for the animal to eat from the field, so you can give your animals to eat in your house as well. There's nothing left of the animals inside the house. In the field, you have to remove all the food you have inside your house and make it hefker, as we'll see later on. That is how you do biur, by making it available to all the animals. Okay? So far so good? Why did they make 3 lands? Because they made a reckoning, and they came to the conclusion that a animal which lives in the hills does not come down to forage in the valleys, and vice versa. An animal which is in the valley does not forage in the hills, and therefore each of those zones is separate vis-a-vis the halachos habir. Okay? Diklinitus. This is a fascinating word. Diklinitus eventually was a Roman emperor, and at that time he was he was Diocletian, yeah. Boy, you are so educated. Who was he?
No clue.
They ain't concerned sports, do they? Okay. Okay. Tiklanitus oilivnei pamias. Tiklanitus was making trouble. He was oppressing with taxes the people of Pamias. Armalei Pamias is in north of Israel, the Banyas, right? It's somewhere near the Golan. It's on one of the maps. I don't know which one. Armalei, so the Jews there said, "Honor us, and we're leaving the land of Israel. That's it. We can't take you anymore." Armalei Sufista, so Diklatinus says Sophist, means his wise man, right? Said, "Lo yezlun lo, don't worry, they ain't leaving. V'im yezlun hazlun, even if they leave, chazun lo, they're coming back. V'bois mivdaka, if you want to check this, that this is a basic nature of any animal, and certainly of a human being. I'll prove it to you. I say tavion, bring deer. And make a sign upon them by wrapping their antlers in silver. Send them off to a distant land. Basof, in the end, they'll come back. So Itaka did this, I say Tavion, he brought deer, and he covered their antlers, or whatever it's called, their horns, with silver. He sent them to Africa. But so, 13 years later they came back. So just like deers come back, what? Just like deer come back, so too human beings will return to the land from whence they came. Sooner or later you'll end up back in St. Louis. Okay? Detroit. Or the Bronx. Tanya. Rav Shimon Gamliel says, Mr. Zucker, where are you from? What? Where are you from? Brooklyn. I didn't know that. I thought you were a Midwesterner. Come on, show you where we are.
No. Well, I've been here for 30 years.
Oh, never. Here. Tanya Rishon Gamliel. My little star here. Tanya Rishon Gamliel.
I told him.
It's very nice, though. It's a symbol of the conservative movement. Yeah. What do you think it's the snack? A snack and then it will come. You know? Shade here, yeah. 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 No, it's people don't know. It's that's why it's a popular parochas design. Where do you think somebody that got to the burning bush comes from? Well, it comes from JTF. All right. In any event, it says more further. Tanya Shimon Gamliel Omer Simon Loharim. How do you know that you're in the hills? This is for naturalists. I know the hills milling when you see gall oaks growing. That's a sign of hills. In America, it's like pine cones. La Mokim, the sign of of valleys. Tomorrow is where you see dates growing. Cholim, a sign of that you're in a river bank. Is Kanim, when you see reeds growing. Shvela, a sign of being in a depression. Is Shkamim, you see sycamores growing. Even though there's no clear-cut evidence for this, there's an allusion to this. Shneimar says, "Vesarozim Nasan." Shlomo Melech made the cedars as prevalent as the sycamore, which are in the depressed area. They were very multitudinous. Some people would say that this whole statement is made in order to teach us Choshen Mishpat. Midas Adin means Choshen Mishpat. Teach us, if somebody promises to sell hillside property or depressed property and so on and so forth, what kind of property he has to provide. Some say this is mentioned Legabe Ilega Rufa Itmar, in order to know what a Nachal Eitan is, a riverbank which has never been actually worked. So then you look for something where there's a lot of reeds. Okay? V'emek, it said in the Galil, one of the regions was the Emek. Time we learned Ezu Emek Sheba Galil. What is the Emek in the Galil? Zubikas Ginosar v'Chaver said that is the valley of Ginosar, which is on the shores of the Kinneret. Okay? Well, there's one in Emek Ginosar. There's one kibbutz called something Ginosar. I forgot what. Yeah. It's not. They have a guest house which has some sort of hechsher, but it's not religious. Uview the har. Ezu har shabi Yehuda. What's a har which is mentioned in Yehuda? Say har HaMelech. Ushvelasa, what is the shvela in Yehuda? Zu shvela sadarom. The shvela nowadays is where Tel Aviv is. That's called the shvela. Okay? The coastal plains are called depressed areas. They're not called valleys because they're not, arable. They're not cultivated land. But they are depressed vis-a-vis the hills. So that's called the shvela. The Emek Shelo, what's the valley? Mein Gedi Vadiricho, from Mein Gedi to Yericho. If you look at the maps, you'll see all these three lands defined in terms of the Halacha Sabir. Okay? Ezu Har Shel Eivar Yarden. What hill is on Eivar Yarden? Tani we learn Shim Ben Lozo, American Michvar, the hills of Michvar, Ugador, Bechenka Itzman, and all the similar ones. Ushvela, so what's the depressed area in Eivar Yarden? You'll see if it says Cheshbon V'chol Resh Ramish, or Cheshbon and all of it says which are on the flat area. Diva Uvamos Baal Ubeis Baamon Bechenka Itzman. That's also anything similar. V'emek Shlo, what's the valley in Eivar Yarden? Beis Helas Ubeis Nimra Bechenka Itzman. All these. You'll see if it says V'emek Beis Haram in the valley of Beis Haram, Beis Nimra, Vesukos B'Tzafon. Yes, the other governances of Sichon, the king of Cheshbon. Beis Haram is Beis Ramasa. Beis Nimra is Beis Nimrin. Sukos is Dar Allah, and Tzafon is Amitu. Okay, on we go. These are all places in Eivar Yarden, which for the south wasn't part of Eretz Yisrael. Shvela Shebahar, Vahar Shebashvela. What about if you have a depression in a mountain, or a mountain in a depression? What's their status? Adamara. Oh, I skipped. Mimadatani Har Vahacho. Now Shlomo Bryce said that a mountain includes its mountain. An Emek V'imko, a valley in its valley. Shvela saw a depression and its depression. Hodam Elazar teaches us Shvela Shebahar, the depression in the mountain is like the mountain itself. Shvela in the mountain in the depression. Shvela is like the depression itself. Rabbi Yeser, it said Masnisa Amar Kain. Our Mishnah says this. It says V'har Shala, actually a Brisa. V'har Shala Kehar HaMelech. What? We're saying the three regions in each state are not further subdivided. That's what we're saying. Right. Okay, because we see anything which is within is considered part and parcel thereof. It's on the east side of Israel. You see that? Take a look at the map. It's north and south of Yerushalmi on the map. Okay? Says more further. Now, the truth is you don't have this map, but there's a fifth map here, which I was too lazy to photocopy, which says that there's an additional small area which has 3 areas in it. It's really very small. It's only 20 kilometers across. That's the district of Beis Charon Varayam. Right, that's the Aleph, yeah. So that too has 3 sub-districts. It's mountain, it's Shvela, and it's Amek. Okay? So now it's that what we're going to discuss here. Yeah. Parakorin, it's a very small district, says the Gemara. Parakorin means a small district. Nonetheless, it has all 3 features. From Beis Charon until the mouse as far as mountainous. Shvela is a depression. From Lud until the sea is Amek is a valley. So why don't we mention 4? In other words, we should mention Galil, Yehuda, Ever Yarden, and this additional thing of Beis Charon Varayam. Let's say the 4 districts, each of which has 3 zones. Muravosei. These are mixed together. In other words, this Beis Charon one is mixing with the one of Yehuda, I guess, so therefore it's not mentioned outright as being distinct. Says the Gemara, Tani, we learned Ein B'Suya Shol Sharotos. In Syria, there are no 3 lands. It's all one big country. This is the halacha biur. Getting back a moment to the line before that, Nisnei Aram Murava saying the Kavanaki I just noticed now says Murava saying means that in that small district from Beis Charon until the sea, it's not clear how to divide up into 3 subcategories of districts. That's why that.
If it's the same, that's why. It's probably all mountains.
Well, certainly no major mountains and no major valleys. So that's why it wasn't included, because there was some confusion as to its status. Okay, let's go back to the Mishnah. Excuse me, I'm going to get a cup of coffee, one more cup of coffee. Time out a second. Yeah. There to offer, yeah. Oh. Okay. Going back to Mishnah. Why did they say there are 3 lands? Do you see it back in the Mishnah? Back in the Mishnah. Back in the Mishnah. Vilma Amru. Vilma Amru, the last 5 lines of Mishnah. Vilma Amru Shalosh Harotzos. Why they say there are 3 lands within each of these 3 districts? In each and every one of these, in each and every one of these 3 sub-districts, you get to eat the fruit until, without having to do biur, until the last fruit in that specific district is gone. Okay? For instance, until the oranges, let's say we're talking about oranges. So eating oranges until in the hill, until all the oranges on the hillside are gone. Eat oranges in the valley until all the oranges in the valley are gone, and so on and so forth. Okay? Rabbi Shimon Omer, Lo Amru Shalosh Harotzos El Biyur. Rabbi Shimon says that the whole concept of Shalosh Harotzos is only Yehuda. V'shal Karotzos, any other one of the other lands, Galil, Evar Yarden, is all Kahara Melech, which is a fascinating thing. It's a kula. The Tahara Melech kept its fruit for very long. This is a hill. It was semi-desert. So whatever. So the animal, there weren't so many animals there, right? So the fruit there lasted a very long time. So any other region in Eretz Yisrael gets to avoid doing biur until the time for biur comes in Har HaMelech, which is a tremendous kula. We're going to define it later on. The parak didn't define it yet.
So economically, it was great for those people who live in that area compared to other places. At least for Shevi'is.
Only for Shemitah, but it wasn't a particularly cultivated area. It wasn't like the Galil where the breadbasket of Israel was. All the time in which the olives and dates disappear is the same in all lands throughout the country of Israel. Isachame, back to the one right. Isachame, come and see. So tremendous kula, Rabbi Shimon saying here. The valleys in Yehuda can't rely on Har HaMelech, which is in Yehuda. But the valleys in the Galil, according to Rabbi Yehuda, can rely on the mountain Yehuda on Har HaMelech. So it's a tremendous kula Rabbi Shimon's giving, that much lands which are much further away can rely on this amount of beer given in Har HaMelech. Kar Ratzos Kulan. Kar Ratzos Kachas Zaysim Chulitani Avcharuim by Caribs also. It's a national thing. It doesn't go by districts. Time we learned Ochlin al Tmarim. It's a national thing. You can eat dates throughout the country without doing beer until they are no longer prevalent in Jericho. Halazaisim on olives are when they're no longer prevalent in Meiron and in Gush Chalav, which are primary growing areas. Right, you got it. Ochlin al Mufkar, Halacha Gimel. Ochlin al Mufkar v'lo v'shomer. You can eat based on that which is as long as the animals have access to wild growing fruit, literally hefker, right? Avlo shomer, but let's say they have access to the fruit by virtue of some stuff being in people's backyards, which is called shomer. That doesn't help. That's already, you still have to do beer at that point. Rabbi Yossi says, even if the stuff is being safeguarded in people's yards, that's sufficient to avoid the requirement to do biur. You can continue eating, let's say, seeds, as long as they're hard seeds out in the field, even for birds to eat. That's sufficient. Since the birds are eating those seeds, so you don't have to eradicate the seeds you have in your house. Vala dufra. Let's say a certain crop produces commodity produces two crops in the same year. So you can eat from the second crop, from the first crop, even though there's none of the first crop left, all there is from the second crop. Since it's the same crop, same fruit, it makes no difference to us as long as the animal has some out in the fields. Avalos titvonios. But you can't use grapes which never get ripe even in the fall. Why? Because that looks like you're relying on stuff from the 8th year already, right? Which is obviously not helpful. So it's true that the grapes of the grapes are good. In order to the unripe grapes are good. Well, they're not good. Hypothetically, the unripe grapes could prevent the chiyuv of beer from devolving, but in practice they don't. Why? Again, because it looks like that which is left is not the stuff which is left from the 7th year, but the stuff which is already growing from the 8th year, since they never got fully ripe. So therefore, it's a Marasayan issue. People are not going to realize that there's no Zman Biur. People are going to think that this is already next year's stuff, as the you transgress, we're not mivire to not eradicate your stuff at the proper time. Rabbi Yehuda says it's permissible. Rabbi Yehuda says as long as these unripe grapes have already formed fruit before the summer's over, that's sufficient that one can then afterwards rely on them and still eat grapes throughout the summer, or throughout the fall for that matter, and not do beer. Now I want to emphasize something, maybe this is not clear. The time for beer of a fruit which grows during Shemitah might not come till the middle of the 8th year. Let's say last year was a Shemitah year. and you have fruit which grew in the middle of the summer, right? Grapes matured around Pesach time, let's say. The Zman of beer of those grapes might not come till when? Till next Hanukkah. Why? Because it all goes by when the stuff in the field is no longer present for the animals. That might be much later in the calendar. Is that clear? That's why I have an issue here. What about these grapes which never ripened, but and as a result are left out in the field? Can I rely on them or not? And then Rabbi Yehuda says you can't rely on them, and not Rabbi Yehuda, because when the Zman of beer rolls around, it looks like this is new crop, because it never fully ripened. So therefore we have this whole discussion as to whether you can use them or not use them. Am I making myself somewhat clear? Okay, let's see the word. Masisa Rabbi Shimon. I don't think that's only Marit Zion, it seems. Not a bona fide issue. Okay? Excuse me. Masisa Rabbi Shimon. Our mission is going like Rabbi Shimon. How so? First we have a drasha. First we have a drasha which goes like everybody. Ksiv, it says, this is a drasha which teaches us the responsibility to do biur. Ksiv, it says, from the fields you should eat its grain. As long as you can eat from the animal. At, it says at meaning you, but it's a misnomer. It doesn't mean you, unless you're an animal. Means that as long as the animal can eat from the field, at you can consume the stuff which is in your house. So the animal no longer has access on the field. You have to take the Shemitah stuff out of your house. That everybody agrees. However, my tradition was logical. Shimon, who says that what's logical? Shimon says that it's specifically stuff which the animal is accessible from hefker, but not stuff which the animal is accessible from the backyard of some individual. Has Rabbi Shimon say that? Atu garamtalo shelo le'achol means that it's not. The language is a bit funny. What he means is that the animal is what must cause the permissibility to eat. And if the animal has accessible food in somebody's backyard, it's not the animal. And if the only access the animal has to the fruit is in somebody's backyard, then tacitly at least it's the human being who's providing access to the food for the animal, not the animal having access itself. And that Shimon says is not acceptable. Even the animal can get in there. If it's not hefker, it's not considered to save the biur issue. Okay? We can eat. You can eat still seeds based on the fact that they're tough seeds out, even though only birds can eat them. This is Rabbi Yossi. Tanya, we learned. Tanakama says there's two problems if you have tfichim in akol. First of all, they're only hard and suitable for birds. Besides an akol, which is a safek chutzlaretz. You can rely on the bird seed, which is an akol, to not yet do biur on the rest of the seed which you have in your house. Rabbi Yasser said, Avina and Sarvin may want to say, Ma pligi Rabbana, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbanim Sifonios. Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbanim's machlokas is limited to these grapes which never ripen even in the fall. Habduprin low. But they don't argue about a fruit which makes two crops a year. That's what I found. It says, Rabbi Yehuda Matir beduprin. Rabbi Yehuda even argues by duprin. It says by duprin. It's true you can rely on the second crop to still eat from the first crop. But that's only it's only if the second crop had matured before the summer was over. Because then the second crop is in close proximity to the first crop, and therefore you could still eat from the first crop as long as the second crop is still out in the fields. But if the second crop is substantially later than the first crop, then the fact that there's stuff in the second crop available to the animals out in the field does not allow the individual to continue to eat in his house without having done a biur. Okay? When there are two crops, and the same tree is producing two crops a year, so that second crop does not allow you to continue to eat from the first crop without doing beer unless the second crop grew close on the heels of the first crop. That's what you were saying. Rabban Ragin say it doesn't make a difference. As long as there is a second crop that year, doesn't matter if it's significantly later, you can still use that land, the fruit rather, from the first crop without having to do beer as of yet. Okay? Your time will come when you must do beer, but you don't have to do beer yet. Okay. Says the Mishnah further. You pickle 3 vegetables in one barrel. Let's say tomatoes, cucumbers, and turnips. You pickle all 3 together. Now they impart flavor to each other. You have to do beer when the first one of those 3 vegetables comes due for beer. When you only have to do beer when the last one comes due for beer. Let me not saw that each vegetable which is in the pickle, in the pickling juice, in the brine, as it comes due, you eradicate that relevant vegetable from the barrel. Okay? So going to the Gemara, where are we, by the way? The one blot so far? We're almost finished the Masechta though, this week. There is hope. Yesh tikva la'acharisech. Right? Rav Shimon Omer. Kol yer, now we're like 2.5 weeks behind the race. Rav Shimon Omer. Kol yerek echol lebiur. All vegetables are one vis-a-vis biur. What does that mean? It's an amazing concept. He's not mentioned in our Mishnah. That means you can still eat tomatoes as long as there are cucumbers out in the fields. It doesn't matter. Says all vegetables are, he don't like any vegetables. Broccoli, cucumbers, tomatoes, they're all the same. So as long as there's some vegetables left out for the animal in the field, that's good enough. The Shemer Kol Yergel Labir. Ochel Mir Gila, that means you can eat regila, which is some vegetable where the animals long ago already had no access. Achuchasigarios, until the last other vegetable of any other kind is gone, Yibika space and tofu, where the vegetables were around for a long, long time. Okay? That's all. Oh, that's all part of the Mishnah. That's still part of the Mishnah. I forgot. Gemara. Now let's start the Gemara. My time, Rabbi Eliezer. What's the logic, Rabbi Eliezer? Who says to go after the first one in the pickling brine? He says everything's nice and time here. So since the first one gives time in the last one, so you have to follow that one. My time, Rabbi Shua. What's the logic, Rabbi Shua? Because he says the exact opposite. The last one gives off its time of flavor of permissibility to the first one. Kasha Rabbi Yeshua, so we have as Kasha Rabbi Yeshua. Hey, that may be, but what about the chumrah? That the first one has already come to its mana biur. And the Gemara doesn't answer. So he brings down here that in the Torah's Kohanim there is an answer that this is based on Psukim. Based on Psukim, we see that there's a possibility of saying that you don't go Chumrah and go after the Sina's time to taste imparted by the first one, but you go Lukur. But it's not for today. In that case, we're always going to be Machmer. Right. Rangamil v'chui. V'tanya looking for Rangamil. We go like Rangamil said, time plays no role. You don't go by taste, you go by substance. Therefore, even they're all pickled together, the turnips, the cucumbers, and the tomatoes, each one has its own separate time. Now here comes a very big kulo. We don't pass it like this. Amar Chizkiah says, "We came with Yisrael ba'otzar." Once you started, that which has to be done biur is a closed barrel. But let's say open the barrel already and started eating from it prior to biur, prior to time biur, kimavur. You don't have to do biur later on because it's already in the process of being consumed. When time biur comes, so now you don't have to do biur on. As uvdel kamei the Rabbi Yasa. Mice came from Rabbi Yasa. Varmei said, "Love that is other kavas. Say, not that whole like Chizkiah chas v'sholem. Elamin madon a chamyan rabbanin of the uza kavas. They saw other rabbis doing like Chizkiah. So Chizkiah for some reason didn't want to pass night, but it was only passing like the mentioned by Chizkiah because he saw other rabbis passing in the same way. Rabbi Yitzhak Baradifa Avle Uvdad, he had such a case. Asa Shol Rabbi Yirmiyah went to ask Rabbi Yirmiyah. So Rabbi Yirmiyah was the humble person. Amalei said, what's going on here? Ayavose Kamach, you have lions in front of you. Vachal, it's a lion, you're asking the foxes. In other words, I'm not suitable to answer your question. So, Rabbi Yitzhak Baradifa went, Asa Shol Rabbi Yeshua, went to ask Rabbi Yeshua. Amalei, so he said, Chamelach, he said, you can't rely on Chizkiah. But this is what you do, Mr. Zuger. This is what you do to the beer. You have to be mafkir the fruit. When the animals no longer have available out in the field, you have to be mafkir the fruit. Thing is, if you're mafkir the fruit, what might happen? Forget about the animals. Humans. Someone else will take it. So say this is what you should do. Chamilach klasa rechimin. Take 3 friends who you know are not going to take it away from you. Va'afkara kumeha. And be mafkir in front of them. That's got to be done in front of 3 people. It's a famous rod at the beginning of Pesachim why Bittul Chametz doesn't have to be done in front of 3 people. So he says, because Bittul Chametz, we know he is doing it for real. Because he doesn't want to be stuck with the prohibition by Yerushalmi by Moshe. But other types of Africa, we're not so sure. Okay? Now, this brings about the following interesting question. Kaputkoi de Tzipori, the people from Kaputko who lived in Tzipori. They're from Kaputka. They lived in Tzipori. The Tziporians didn't like them. They were foreigners. So Shaul and Rabbi Ami, they asked Rabbi Ami, begin to lazily lane Amma, since this nation, meaning the Kaputkoi live in Tzipori, do not abide no shirochim. They don't have anybody who likes them. Below Shalom, nobody even gives them Shalom Aleichem. How can they do biur and not have other people come and chop the stuff which they're doing biur on? Right? Amar alone, so he said to him, Katchamun raglot slila. When you see the marketplace empty of all people, Tevon mafkin le'lashuka, take out your commodities to the marketplace quickly. Mevakrin loan and be mafkir then, and then take it back to yourselves. So he said it gave an answer to do it quickly and when nobody else is looking. Okay? Now the thing is like this. What about the 3 people? They didn't even have 3 people they liked, right? Who liked them. So how could they ever make an hefker properly? So the Gross says, he brings down here, that where you need 3 people to make something hefker if you do it in your own backyard. But if you put it out in a public thoroughfare, then even if there's nobody present, it's automatically hefker. So therefore they put it out in the public thoroughfare in the dark of night. It's modified hefker, but nobody else would take it. Seconds. Split seconds. Nanoseconds. Okay? Says my Rabbi Chagai, in order to prevent other people being zoicha in this stuff which is being mevar, mafugl and sluch, he put it out in small plates. It's not a big jug. In small plates so nobody would notice. You know, it's like kind of surreptitious. Rabbi Elazar mafugl and sluch, he would also do it in the following fashion. Rabbi Chizkiah saw a guy, Rabbi Chizkiah once went to Rabbi Yirmiyah Omer, and he said, Zach is buying out, so listen, I got an oitzer, I need to get rid of because it's Zman beer. So I want you to be Zoich in it. Because I know you'll give it back to me, right? So Rabbi Yirmiyah said, okay, fine. Sorely ilim pritaya gaboch, take this money which I'm giving you, and let the place where the fruit is, let it be rented to me. So therefore, once you make it hefker, I immediately acquire it because of the kinyan of agav. Once it's on my land, I acquire anything which is upon it. Not kinyan agav, kinyan chotzer. Now after they did step 1, so Rabbi Yirmiyah said, So Rabbi Chagai, good. Locate afkartan, where you're not mafkir properly. Now, chazor v'zache be'ad. Now take it back from me. You have permission to go and be zeicha back. I'll give you back the land which I rented out from you. And when you get back the land, you'll get back the stuff which is on top of it as well. Okay, meaning the stuff which is supposed to be mafkir. Alright? Haloche. Can we turn the page? Oh, cool. Haloche. Hamalakid asavim lachim. By the way, I prepared to the end of the parak, but it just goes on and on and on. Okay, one at a time. That's the disadvantage of going till 9 o'clock, starting at 9 o'clock. You only have till 10:05. Hamalakid asavim lachim. Somebody who gathers moist grasses. This is not really a beer issue. Hamalakid so not allowed to gathering moist grasses in the 8th year. Achiva shamotok. They are considered to have kedusha Shevi'is. They're potentially Shevi'is grasses until they're dry, until the ground is dry. Then I say mistoma they grew during the 8th year and they're okay. Hamagabe v'yavish. Now here's a more interesting halacha perhaps. I'm gathering dry twigs. They have kedusha Shevi'is achetei revi'ir shnia until the second rain falls. The second rain is on the 23rd of Mar Cheshvan. This year, approximating November 20th. Okay, so at that time, they lose their status of kedusha Shevi'is. Why? Because they become repulsive. Why they become repulsive? Because they got all wet and ucky and muddy and dirty, right? So therefore, at that point, they lose their kedusha Shevi'is. At that point, you're allowed to use them for any purpose you want. You don't have to use them with a heightened kedusha, which normally applies to shemitah fruit. Ali kanim v'ali kfanim, by leaves of reed trees and leaves of grapevines, they're not considered to be v'lus kedusha Shevi'is until they drop out of their tree, until they drop from their clusters. Ramagabe b'yavish, if you're gathering dry twigs of this sort, achetei revi'ir shnia, then they only consider to be repugnant once the second rain falls about them. Rabbi Akiva Omer, but kula, in general principle in all these cases, achetei revi'ir shnia, until the second rain falls about them. So let's go to the Gemara. Rabbi Yosef and Rabbi Yochanan. Leis kanalik kanim. Don't talk here about reeds. They el alik fanim. Only talk about the vines of grapes. Dalik kanim ein beer. Alik kanim, the branches of reeds, they have no beer. Why? Because they're always available. There's never a lack of supply for animals in the field. The Tani came in there's brisa. Ali kanim, the leaves of reed trees, vali zaytin, the leaves of olive trees, vali oak, and the leaves of the oak trees, vali charuvin, leaves of carob trees, ein lam beer, they don't require beer, nature, ein minan kola, because their type is always present and prevalent. The animals are never lacking that. Okay, now let's go a further field, going back to the Mishnah. Similarly, somebody who rents his house to his friend. It says, I'm renting you adak shamim until the rains, plural. Until the second rain. I forswear any benefit from you until the rains. Until the second rain. To when can aniyim, poor people go into orchards, take like a chakapea, until the second rain. From when it's to the straw and the hay of Shvi is considered to lose its kedusha because it's repulsive. You should tear it from the second rain. Back to the Gemara. To Rabbi Zera boy Omar. Rabbi Zera wanted to say that's only if you said until the rains ad hageshem, but until the rain ad geshem echad, until one rain, which was earlier. Talmud we learned over there. Oh, it's a similar idea. Somebody said who wants to volunteer wood to base on Mikdash, and he said eitzim, plural. So you can bring no less than 2 branches. Rabbi Yossi bar Bun Omar, Rabbi Abba bar Memo boy Omar. Rabbi Abba Memo wanted to say, based on what we just said, Omar realized 8 person said wanted to bring one tree, maybe because the other brings one log. Or maybe Lezer said, Masnisa Amar Kain, the Mishnah tells us this. She said, that each piece of wood is its own korban unto itself. The Tzina Tzamos, we learned over there, Shnaim, when the Beis Hamikdash, the Beis English, when they used to bring up the wood, they bring up Shnaim beyond the Shnei Gzirates, each unique two Kohanim, one each to bring up each log, so we see each log is distinct. Tani, we learned, Rabbi Yisrael called Davar Shutol B'Revia, anything which has to do with rain. In other words, if somebody takes a nether, let's say, not to put on shoes until the rains. So since shoes have to do with protecting oneself from the mud, right? Because in the somebody used to wear sandals, that goes to the second rain. If somebody said until the literal second rain, until the second rain actually falls. Something which has nothing to do with the rains per se, but he said until the rainy season, until Chav Gimel Mar Cheshvan, regardless of whether the first or second rain is falling then. Okay. We'll stop here for this evening. We're anywhere near 2 o'clock?